Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Welcome to the TBF, Tech Behind FinTech. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Chinwe Grace Jones, and I am TBF's first guest host. Welcome to the show called From Host to Guest, Tech Behind FinTech Unscripted, where we are doing a role reversal. I will be doing the interviewing, and our host, my guest today, Nnamdi Osuagwu, the one that you know, will be in the guest seat. We are live. We are streaming live right now in Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, Instagram. This is my first time as the host, so please let me know if we're streaming anywhere else, Nnamdi, before we get started. Are we good?
No, I think we're going for both Instagram pages, my personal Instagram page plus the Tech Behind FinTech Instagram page. We have a live feed going there.
Okay, excellent. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to be in this seat to talk to you. And this is going to be an interesting episode for people because we really want to get behind your host of TBF. We want to understand how he came to be the host and just his whole journey. And in it, you'll get some insights about the fintech industry and cybersecurity and everything else that he does. So I'm just going to get started, if you don't mind. I'm going to do something that you're not supposed to do, which is I'm not going to say a bio because I think this interview is going to be like a live bio, and we're going to get into all the different aspects. So my first question, you probably don't realize it as much. Your name does not match your accent, right? In the sense of you're first generation Nigerian and you were born and raised in Brooklyn. Talk a little bit about how that shaped who you are today.
Wow, so it's a really interesting question. It's a lot, man. How do I say? Taking it back to that time period, right? Parents came to the United States as immigrants. There was a civil war going on in Nigeria at the time, the Biafra War, and my parents they came through to America during that period of time. I was born about 7 years later, no, around 7 to 8 years later, once they got settled in, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York, but it still had a wide community because at the time we had a lot of cousins. Like, all right, usually, let me take a step back. Usually, if you look at how immigrants work, right? You come to the United States, and let's say it's the first family that came through. Usually, that first family is like the hub; they're the base. Then they bring their cousins, brothers, and everybody over. So my mom was that person. So we had a lot of cousins, uncles, all staying with us. And although I wasn't in Nigeria per se, I had the culture because they all came from that they all came from Nigeria, and they all were, and it was so everything. So things that I took for granted when I was a kid, and looking back, it was just so beneficial. And obviously, once I leave the house and I interact with my friends and the area, I get the Brooklyn culture like in my face. And at that time, it was old school Brooklyn. It wasn't the gentrified Brooklyn that most people know right now. It was during the crack epidemic of the 80s going into the 90s. So it was a really interesting time period, growing up in that particular era. But I think one of the things that really kept me grounded was a mom who I feared at the time because she was not having it at all. So it kept me on the straight and narrow despite the influences from my surroundings.
So is Brooklyn as tough as they say from your perspective?
I think if you take it back to the 90s, going into areas like Brownsville, East Flatbush, you know, yeah, right. You know, we had instances of yeah. Yes. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
I, I want to show, so I'm trying to. Yeah, I like once I get on this show and I get on this mic, I get real corporate. So things that it's just by default. But yes, yes.
Okay. So you had this mom that you feared, and you had this that kept you on the straight and narrow. And you had this area that you're considering tough, and you're saying that it was, and you had these like host of family members. You said it was beneficial and interesting. What do you have a particular experience that maybe like stood out for you to say why you know how this has helped you or been beneficial in your life?
So when my cousins and uncles came over, they didn't have children yet. So I was literally like the one of the only people of my age at the time, and they were, a lot of them were they were driving cabs and just doing odd jobs while they were in school. So as a child, I didn't really think that they were that much older than me. I put myself in their same situation, and they were like, they're thinking, well, I got to go make some money. I'm thinking in the same scenario. I got to do this. I got to do that too. I didn't have to, obviously, but in my head, that's what I had to do. So I think growing up in that atmosphere definitely matured me fast. And the one good things I always have to shout out my family about this that really, really helped me. And that's why it's so important to do this to kids. They would ask me, all right, what do you want to do when you get older? And I always said I wanted to be a businessman. I wanted to do this. And then after that, they go, okay, you're the businessman. You're the businessman. And that's what they always say that. Like you're the business. So it just gives you a certain level of confidence when you're a kid. And then they just constantly reinforcing, oh, you're this, you're that, all positive. Like, and I think they poured so much positivity into me and just identifying me as things that I wanted to become before I was that.
Wow.
Became that. And I
Yeah.
think that was it was instrumental and still with me to this day because there's a lot of things that I just try and I don't know if it'll work, but I try it, right? And I learn from it and build upon it. And I think having the confidence to do that definitely stems from childhood where no one I no one ever tore me down per se. It was always building me up and building me up without necessarily having the evidence that I could accomplish the end goal.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think that was instrumental in terms of getting older.
Yeah,
And
that's powerful to have a
I,
community like that, building you up, telling you to act as if, even though you're not there, will make you do a lot of different things. Anywhere throughout that memory, we're sitting in this show called Tech Behind FinTech. Anywhere in that memory, did you know that you were going to be in technology, you were going to be in finance? Like, was there anything that kind of makes the connection to where we are today?
yeah, so for those that don't know, the person interviewing is actually my sister. So that's it. So it's
Hello.
important that I tell that. So um she she was in high school and I was about 10 and our high school, we all went to so all my siblings, it's four of us, we all went to the same high school. It's a school called Brooklyn Tech. Shout out Brooklyn Tech. And Brooklyn Tech had majors. And, Shimmer was a computer science major. And my mom, well, she was sacrificed so much for education. So we didn't really have necessarily grew up, in certain situations. But the one thing she would do was scramble for education. So as soon as Shimmer became a computer science major, we had a computer in the house. So the only thing that I was thinking about was, all right, this is a machines that I'm used to. They have games on it, and I want to play a game. And I was about 10 or so, 9 to 10. And then I said, oh, I told to Chill, I was like, I want to play this game. She said, you want to play a game? All right, cool. She gave me this big book. I didn't know at the time what the book was, but it was a book of programs. At the time, it was an early Windows, so we're using Basic A. And if you basically copied the program into the prompt, I think it was some sort of some file, some DOS file, taking it back, it would produce a game. So I was reading this book, and it was a ping pong game. I said, okay, let me build this ping pong game, and I wrote it. But obviously, when you're copying it manually, you might miss. You're a kid, you're gonna miss certain words or whatever. At the time, I didn't know that missing those words and trying to play the game and getting errors was me debugging. I didn't know what the concept of debugging was. That's what I was doing. Like, oh, this is failing. Why is it failing? Go through that exercise. Unfortunately, I'm a pretty end results person. So as soon as I got the game to work, I let go of the book. I was like, I don't need this anymore. And I just like to play the game. I wish to this day that I dived deeper into the why and stuff. But I've always been an end result kind of person, even at that age. And I get the goal. It's like, all right, cool. What's next? But it was I think that was the one thing. And then when I eventually got into high school and switched majors, not switched, but chose computer science, the programming was familiar. It wasn't like, oh, what is this? Because I've done it before.
Okay. Excellent. I totally forgot. Like, I remember it vaguely, but I forgot. I'm trying to remember the language. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember the language it was that of that time. And people right now in this generation probably wouldn't even know that language. That's what's so funny about it.
It was Basic A.
Okay.
Basic A.
Okay. It was
That was the Windows. That was the Windows language at the time.
Okay. It was Basic A. I was thinking about another one. So that's interesting. So being in New York, I know that. So you got this computer. You majored in high school, and then you went to college. You went to Temple University. From there, how did it start to go into? Because I know you've done work in the finance. How did you manage to start being a technologist in the finance world?
That's a great question. So when I got into Temple, my original major was business, MIS, and then had a conversation with my mom, and she said, you have to make sure that when you get out of school, you get a job that can pay your bills. I mean, hint, I'm not taking care of you, right? So at the time, I was like, this is interesting. So I went into some career center we had. It was on campus. It was called like Knitted Wall. So they had this computer called Ziggy at the time, and I literally searched for majors that required no secondary degree, and I could make the max amount of money. And healthcare and computer science came up, and I was like, well, computer science, I can do that. I'm familiar with that. So I switched into just straight computer science at the time. But if we take a step back, right? When I was younger, my end goal was just to always start a business. Like, I think as a kid, one of my cousins, like Mitch, he had me selling soda and water outside of a African festival, and I just got addicted to business since then. So, and even from high school to college, I didn't necessarily want to go to college. I just wanted to start a business. I didn't know what the hell I was going to start, and my mom and my sister were like, "No, you're going to college, bro." And then so in college, it was always like, "All right, how do I make enough to start a business?" So that was the rationale behind finding a major that can pay me a certain amount so I can use those resources to start a business immediately. So that was the process. And then I think during that period, I started to fall back in love with technology, and yeah. So and to answer your question, the finance part didn't come in college per se. I worked in my university. Then after college in the computer science realm, like I was managing a nonprofit technology, but then I went to a startup after that. That startup didn't work out. And then when I was looking for employment opportunities, my cousin slash godbrother was working in New York, consulting for a company that their end client was JP Morgan. And he got me an interview with that consulting company. And they put me in front of the JP Morgan client. They liked me. And then that was the start of the financial sector.
Okay.
Shout out to
Okay. So you have this technology background and now you're in this finance, right? And I kind of want to kind of like fast forward a little bit, but why TBF, right? Why did you, I mean, I see the pattern, but why did you feel the need to start TBF?
So if we forward now 20 years, 21 years in the game, I started to feel like, wow, social media is popping. You got a lot of I'm consulting. I have a consulting company. I've been working in the financial sector for like, 2 decades. And I I would always give people advice because I did a lot of social media stuff in between that. I was always give people advice. Oh, you know what would really help your career if you jump on social media, talk about something that your field and stuff like that. But I really secretly I wouldn't take my advice. I'll be on social media, but for some reason, talking about my field, I felt that I'll be judged. I felt that I might make a mistake. Uh, Growing up, also, I grew up with a speech impediment. Most people, well, not most people, really, like no one knows that unless I tell them that. And they're like, "Oh, really? I had no clue." No, of course you would have no clue because we had speech therapists, and that was the work, right? So I always had a fear of speaking. Um, you know, fear of speaking, especially on camera, especially about my field. And you always have this fear that you could potentially ruin your career. Somebody sees it. Oh wow, this guy's not as smart as whatever, or he said something. I don't believe it, whatever the fears that we start creating in our mind. So it's 2020. We're in COVID. I've been isolated for like months in my house, and I'm like, you know what? I want to do something that I'm going to talk about this field that I was in. I want to get behind the minds of some CEOs, some technologists. I think they're doing great jobs. I want to kind of bring them to the forefront. Like I want to bring them on some type of show. Um, and I was thinking about it, and I was scared, to be honest with you. I thought it was a good idea. I said, okay, we're going to start something called Tech Behind FinTech. Well, I'm going to start something called Tech Behind FinTech, and I'm just going to jump on every single week and do a show. And my first show, never forget it. I I was in a room, I had sound equipment failures. People were like, I can't hear you, whatever, whatever. And I kept on doing it because I really and truly feel. And I give this advice to everyone. I give this advice to everyone I talk to. Look, find whatever. I don't care if you build widgets. Like I don't. It doesn't make a difference what you build, right? But use social media and talk about it. Talk about the field. Learn about it. Interview people about it. Just get immersed in it, and you'll be surprised how many people actually see you. They might not. This is one thing I've learned too. This is just everyone. They may not like it. They may not comment. But guess what? They might see you. Hey, dude, I watched your show. Like, word, really? All right, yeah. Like, okay, thanks. But the analytics are the analytics, and and despite that, you learn more about your field. It was a guy that I was listening to. He's not around anymore, but is on YouTube. I think his name is Earl Nightingale, and he was always talking about just being a student of your field, learning as much as you can learn. And I've always liked conversations. That's how I learn. I mean, I read. Obviously, I have to read, but I love conversations. I love talking to an expert, talking to someone that's doing something that I don't know about, and just engaging in a really great conversation. And this platform has been really great to do that. And sometimes I may, you know, I may have to force myself to learn a new subject where if it wasn't for this show, like I might not be studying that subject. Random, like this year we talked about. I did a solo show on quantum computing. I'm not a quantum computing expert. Just put that out there. But I read about it, hopped on the show. Look, let's talk about some basics around what a qubit is, what entanglement means, just little stuff like that. And I think this show has, over the course of time, has been really helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. You know what I really particularly appreciate? The honesty. I think that sometimes people see a show like this week in, week out, and they think that you didn't have your own like fears or doubts, and that's what keeps people from doing things, right? I think the show is really good at bringing out a lot of different experts, but also bringing out emerging fintechs that might not have a platform to talk about what they're talking about, and really allow them to also, get excited about what they do. So I really want to thank you on behalf of the fintech community for creating a space like this for them, because I really enjoyed like you talked about, you learn in creating the shows. I learn in watching some of the shows, especially when you go back. And yes, I am definitely not one to comment. So you can add me to that list of people that watch the show but don't comment. Reflecting on your time as a host, have there been any kind of memorable, I know you don't want to call out, all your guests are beautiful, you don't want to call out any guests, but are there any kind of things that stood out for you, any insights from your experience as a host for TBF?
Understand, I think this is the 155th show
now
in TBF. Thank you, appreciate that. So 155th or 50, I think the exact numbers, it's there. So, it's a lot of different conversations I've had over the last 3 years, because we started in 2020. But so I'll talk about this year, 2023. We have a clip of some stats from this year. But really interesting business models. I talked to and I don't want to mess anyone's name up. So instead of potentially messing someone's name up because of my memory, I'm just not going to say the name, but the topic that we talked about. Talked to this one guy, man. He had a really interesting crypto angle, and because I'm also, like, I got into real estate right after college, so I'm a real estate guy, right? That's a whole other conversation. But into long-term rentals and stuff like that. So, but he's a real estate guy. But what he would use part of his real estate for is mining crypto. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like, how does that work? So, interesting conversation. Talked to a gentleman in South Africa about credit, and they don't have necessarily like the credit reports that we have here. And how do you deal with people that are unbanked? They don't have traditional credit, and he was using their grocery buying habits to connect with the banks to then give them credit. Really fascinating stuff, right? Yeah. It was like, oh snap. Talked to another dude. He was in the Netherlands, but originally from South Africa. We talk about agri-fintech and agri-fintech and dealing with farmers and how that plays into the general economy and some of the stuff they're going through and the lending and farming. Something I had no clue about. Definitely got into during the regional bank conferences, had a couple of guests on, learned about what an ALCO report is and how regional banks can leverage the ALCO reports to avoid something like insolvency and stuff and things like that. And when you look at some of the failures, you're asking yourself, why wasn't this leveraged? Did they not see this coming? Interesting conversation. Talk to a gentleman. And it's so awesome because at times I get to talk to some, like, I'm going to mention this person's name because, I mentioned two people's because we just go back, and there's no knock on my other guests. It's just that they've known me since high school. So I had two guests on from high school that we still are really close with, but they're doing excellent stuff professionally. Michael Worthen and Renee Brown Small. So those are always great because these are people who we've known each other since we were like 13, 14. We all have advanced in our careers, and now we can have a conversation about technology or human resources or recruiting as in regards to fintech. So I always love those conversations because outside of this platform, we're talking about everything else but technology. So it's interesting having them in this forum. And we haven't ever work together in a we did business together, obviously, but not work together. So watching them in a professional setting and like, because it's kind of like work, right? That's always brings a smile to my face. And obviously, you're a former guest, and I've known you since I was born. Like, you are like, it's literally just so having you on, and we're talking about culture, and you gave me those stats on culture. I was like, wow, interesting. So I think one of the things with me, although I'm a technologist, I really enjoy people first. I really enjoy learning from people and talking through that and learning something new from someone. I mean, even in just the different things that I do in life, and from technology to real estate to the training and fitness, all these different elements in martial arts, it's just like I really love learning from people. So that
Yeah.
is one of the elements that I take with me on the show.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's one of the things that I think stands out for you as the CEO of your firm, your cybersecurity firm, Strategic Generation. So I want to talk a little bit about that. You have a firm, Strategic Generation, and I think your unique aspect is that people aspect, that relationship aspect. Tell me a little bit about Strategic Generation and why is it different than any other cybersecurity firm out there?
Wow, that's the hot seat. One of the things that I've learned and what differentiates this firm is the people. So you guys everyone can sell the same widget, right? Right. Everyone has widgets all look the same. What differentiates one widget from another? It's the actual person you're dealing with who's going to implement that widget, or the salesperson who's walking you through, okay, this is the process. So it really boils down to the people when you start getting into situations where everything looks the same. And I think for me, I'm the differentiating factor. My background, how I interact with people that I work with, the different things that I bring to the table from the decades of experience in financial services. From also, I always have a running joke. Right now, I work more with fintechs. When I was with uh, larger banks from like the JP Morgans or the Barclays, I mean, you can look at my LinkedIn, the bio is there, right? Uh, when I go to these places, guess what happens in the first? Can you guess what happens in the first 6 months?
No.
All of the executive management team have some sort of home fitness equipment. They'll even have an ab wheel. They'll have a sandbag. They'll have something because that they just do. It's like it just can't help it because that's what we talk about. Obviously, we're doing the work, doing the business, but they all start getting into fitness.
That is
And I think
hilarious. I think
it's happened time and time again. It's like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, you should get this. You should get that. Okay, cool. I mean, the work still has to get done. And I just think if you start now translating that to the work, it's all about how do we get that 1% better every day, right? How do we leave this environment better than when we came? And I think the first part, the thing that you want to leave better is you, right? That's it. Like, what's your impact on another individual? Like, it's how I gauge relationships. If I'm with you and I absolutely learned nothing, felt nothing, what's the point of our relationship?
Okay. So basically, wow, that's powerful. So basically you're saying that you are the unique distinguishing factor, StratGen, and that drive of always getting better, even if it's 1% better, and making an impact on people, right? On their relationships. So, like when you were working with the big banks, everybody that you are dealing with or talking to, you're talking about fitness, and somehow they end up with additional equipment, workout equipment, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. 100%.
You're making that impact.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into, and we're definitely going to get into your fitness, but I want to talk a little bit more about SG and just talk a little bit about, you say you talk to fintechs right now. Talk a little bit about what exactly are you doing for fintechs through your company, Strategic Generation?
That's a good question. So one of the things that we're doing is helping them build out their cybersecurity program in a very automated fashion. So one of the things with security, right, is it always comes out as an operational expense, right? How do you switch that conversation to make it more of a differentiating factor? And
Hmm.
that's the challenge, right? You're going on sales calls. You know, the most painful thing is you're going on a sales call. Your product, right, is good enough that they want to move forward with due diligence. Then you get to the due diligence phase, and it becomes extremely difficult because they're asking you questions. You don't have certain things in order. So how do you now, instead of making security more of an operational expense, how do you say, I want to make it part of my sales enablement? I've
Hmm.
been on calls with fintechs where and working with sales teams to help really unlock that in a sense when the client's asking critical due diligence questions. And now we're able to answer that because of our cybersecurity program. It's automated. It's transparent. We have a page where they can kind of see what's going on. All our documents are in order. So we're essentially answering those cybersecurity questions prior to them even asking that. What happens, they feel more confident in
Mm.
moving forward. If you wait until the prospect starts to ask a question, it becomes this thread. You ever saw a thread when it's open, like it's unloosed from the fabric, you pull it, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden everything starts falling out? You want to basically present to them everything you have going on because it creates an it's overwhelming to them. They're like, oh wow, you got this, and it's just like anything, right? When anyone's asking you questions, I mean, if you ever been involved with a relationship and let's say you were out all night and you did things you're not supposed to do, and then you
Right.
came home and then the person's asking you questions and then you start stuttering stepping, guess what happens, right? Hey, it starts unraveling. So if you come home, look, this is where I was at, this is what was going on, boom, 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 less questions because you're transparent. So I think the biggest thing we do, especially with our technology behind the scenes, is we help fintechs become very transparent with their cybersecurity efforts, making them more stable. It helps with their cybersecurity hygiene, number one, right? And two, it also helps with increasing the confidence in the clients that they work with. It's all about trust. What is your trust management process? I mean, if someone is concerned about your security, they don't trust you. They don't trust that because like when it comes to security and supply chains and third party management, you know, especially with B2B, right? You basically now are part of their link. And as we all know, right, the weakest link messes up the whole thing. They don't want you to become their weakest link. So they're like, listen, I need to ask you these questions because I can't risk you having my data and then somehow you breach it. So I need to gain confidence in you. Confidence means trust. I need to trust you. So what we do is help foster that trust.
Okay. Okay. And how does an emerging fintech trust, why would emerging fintech trust you to do that for them?
And then now you start going into bios, right? 2 decades in the game, right? I mean, because it's so interesting because I don't really go into my bio, but
Right.
my bio is my bio, man. What I've
Right.
been
And
doing.
so I'll read it here. So it says something about you've worked it's one of the major challenges in fintech's organizations maintaining security and data privacy while ensuring continuous availability to end users. At StratGen, I've helped businesses with just that. I founded StratGen, an information technology solutions firm specialized in cybersecurity, DevSecOps, cloud architecture, and business intelligence over a decade ago, and since provided efficient and cost-saving digital solutions to Fortune 100 investment banks, private equity firms, and blockchain startups. Over the course of my 2-decade long career, I've generated over 30 billion in business value for premier global financial institutions, and it just goes on and on. So I'm not going to go, but you're
Yeah,
right. So your bio says that you have a master's science degree in cybersecurity, a bachelor of science in computer science. You're enrolled in a PhD program. Oh my God, it really does go on and on and on. So you have the experience, you have the know-how, you know to help how to help these emerging fintechs make sure that their cybersecurity posture is in a position that they can be trusted by their clients, and that enables them to get sales. Is it hard sometimes convincing them?
I mean, if you talk to anyone in a sales environment, sales is hard because I mean the biggest thing with cybersecurity, in my opinion, is conveying the need. Because most people look at it like an operational expense. You're a startup, you got slim budgets, it's all about go-to-market strategies and different things of that nature. So they look at cybersecurity as, do we really need this? Or we'll be getting far out of it. And I'm like, listen, good luck, right? If it's working for you and you're getting far, but guess what? It's going to be a certain point as you scale, it's going to become a showstopper if you do not have this stuff in you. Your investor's going to ask for it, because guess what? The people invested in you. They gave you, how many millions or hundreds of thousands or whatever. You're putting their money at risk, right? And, at a certain point, they're going to be asked the question, especially if you're doing in a B2B space, because, can that partner, or if you're now trying to, it might not be in the B2B space, might be in the B2C space, but guess what? You're in payments right now, and you're going to need to partner with a bank. And even though now it's a partner relationship, it's still due diligence questions are going to be asked. Now, and one of the things you don't want is if you fail in those due diligence, or not really fail, well, fail is a critical word, but if you don't answer appropriately, or let's say that you say you have something and it comes to out that you don't, damages your trust. And then we start getting into compliance frameworks, which we help clients SOC 2. And the reason why a lot of when you look at the partners or the prospects love SOC 2 is because that trust is built in. They're like, all right, when you have this SOC 2 compliant, that means, right, you've been audited by a CPA and they did all the check boxes, so we trust you. But if you start looking at it from a pure checkbox perspective, you're doing yourself a disservice, because with our technology behind the scenes, right, that we leverage, we connect the different APIs and third-party systems that you use. So right now, you basically have an automated way to manage your entire security posture. So now, when you eventually get the SOC 2 compliant, every year you have to redo it, but we make it very easy for you, very efficient, just as long as you stick with, okay, you know what? I see some issues happening. It's automated. You get alerts and you resolve them. So not only are you SOC 2 adhering to the compliance, but what you're also doing is managing your entire security posture. Like I said, that's overall. I mean, look, we can go different levels of security, right? A SOC 2 can help you with application security and DevSecOps. No, that's a whole other conversation that we can actually have, right? Which you want to kind of start looking. But when you start looking at your overall hygiene, right? If you have two homes and one home has an ADT sign, some security sign, another home doesn't, you go with the path of least resistance, right? Hackers are the same way, right? So if you have a lot of stuff when you're based, like formulate, oh, this is what we're doing, here's what we're pretty much efficient in, and then you do searches and try to and little things. Okay, they're not falling for phishing attempts, they're not falling for this. All right, let's move on. So that's the way I look at it.
Okay, no, thank you. And I know I like I know another thing you always remind us is that there's no such thing as never being able to be breached, right? But what you're trying to do is minimize that situation, especially with hackers. You don't want to leave things open for them to just be able to come in, right? Is that correct? Did I get that correct?
Listen, you got that correct. Listen, with enough resources, and enough time, anything digital could be compromised. That's what I think, right? When you start looking at like, all right, you start looking at script kiddies versus criminal organizations versus nation state actors, right? So, someone with billions of dollars in resources, but if you now say, okay, what is my overall hygiene, right? And, and it's interesting that you brought that up, right? Because some folks think, okay, I should have an insurance policy and that should cover me. Okay, I don't know, if you dealt with, you see, every insurance is great to have. Insurance is also great before an actual event takes place. Once an event takes place, guess what? Now it's like, okay, did you meet all these criteria for us to actually pay you out? Because guess what? If you were not diligent in your hygiene and maybe in the fine line of the insurance contract, it might find a reason not to pay you. Look, real estate. I was working on a rehab, and I had builder's insurance or whatever. The home got broken into. They took my appliances, everything like that. It was a whole fiasco. I go back to the insurance company. All right, cool. I have insurance. Here's the things that were stolen. They bring an adjuster out. Okay, cool. They come back. Oh yeah, you know what? We don't cover theft for construction projects. Like, oh wow.
Wow.
I wish I would have known that before I was paying you premiums every single month. But you know what? All good. But so, you start looking at it from a technology perspective. I mean, it was like you have insurance. And I'm like, that's great. That's cool. Have you ever had an occurrence though? No. All right, let's see what happens when you do. Wish you luck.
Wow. So you act as the virtual CISO for these emerging techs, but you also have another moniker that I thought was very interesting when I was preparing for this. It's called the six-pack CISO. So my first question, do you have a six-pack? Do you actually have a six-pack?
Yeah, right. But like understand though, right? Like the Six Pack CISO is a YouTube channel that was created. And look, it's YouTube, right? Trying to make it interesting, engaging. So it's kind of detailing my workouts, but also relating it back to cybersecurity and trying to bring some sort of connection. But yeah, I mean, look, I train at a really awesome gym. Shout out to Web Fitness. And in that community, there are a lot of amateur fighters, professional fighters, and so forth. So the training is just at another level. And I'm mental, so I added my own nuances to the training as well. So when you train at that level and you manage your nutrition, it is possible to have a six pack.
Wow. Okay. So tell me about your this whole concept. So you're giving health tips and cybersecurity tips all at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm really like I was thinking about this the other day, just in general, not the other day, maybe a while ago, but like I'm just really into improvement, self-improvement. I'm big on it. I'm big on, like, you talk to people that know me, I'm like, yo, what's the nutrition? I'm trying to figure that out. Health, trying to figure that out. Because for me, even though we talked about technology, we talked about business, we talked about different things, health is my foundation. I've I'm a lot more remote right now, but when I was working more in New York, and it was this one gym that I was a member of, really upscale gym. I loved the gym. A lot of high-end individuals, financial guys there, guys running $1 billion desk, became friends with, and so forth. And the one thing I noticed around these people, they're focused on health. And I'm like, wow, they have like the money that most aspire to have. But now they're like, yo, I'm in health. So my whole thing is, right, if you are around some wealthy individuals and so forth, you start seeing a switch, one health, because that's the one thing that money can't buy. So why not have that? For me, that's the foundation. Everything else builds on top of that. So yeah, I wake up 6 in the morning. I'm in a jiu-jitsu class and a yoga class at the gym, right? My health regimen is non-negotiable. And that gives me like the energy to do all the other things that I do.
Wow. You have this, I think you start to share it with me and it sounded so crazy. You have this crazy Saturday boot camp that you do. You want to describe what that looks like? And has anybody ever been able to keep up with you?
Yeah. So here's the deal, right? Because of the work schedule and so forth, Saturday is my day to train like a professional athlete. I list Saturday as my day. So it could start 7 in the morning. I go to this one school and it's a bunch of guys there. We just back to back rolls for like an hour. We call that open mat in the jiu-jitsu community. Shout out to close quarters. Then come home, eat some breakfast, go back at 11. There's another open mat at my main school, roll for like another hour and a half. Recently, 12 p.m. started wrestling getting coached in wrestling. After that, I work out with a whole workout circuit. One of my main guys, Coach Allen, shout out to him. He's a boxer and jiu-jitsu practitioner. But we have a crazy workout circuit that we do, a lot of HIIT exercises. After that, go and swim. Now, even in the community I train with, most don't want to do that. Whether it's time, family obligation, like, look, or like, no, I'm not doing it, right? And I don't knock them. It's a personal decision. But I would say one person actually did a day with me. So far, it's been one person a full day with me. Shout out to my guy, Peyton. Young kid, he's about 18, right? 18 or so, 18, 19. I think he's 18. And he did a whole day with me from the 7 a.m. all the way to the late afternoon, early evening to the swimming. But I just like it. It's a good push. I'm also into like tournaments and compete with guys like half my age. So just having that level of stamina and just has been really helpful in my competition.
And what have you learned? You make health your foundation, because I know this in your position, especially as a CISO, a chief information security officer, there's a lot of high stress, right? You don't know when the next breach is going to be, how you're going to handle it, all of this. So in this industry of CISOs, health might not be at the paramount. How are you able to you say health is your foundation? How are you able to balance the two?
Like I said, man, I just think like when it's a friend of mine I was talking and he was asking someone, has your body ever failed you? Right? He said he asked this guy, it was a situation, but he said, like, have you ever fought? The guy was like, yeah. He said, but has your body ever failed you while you're trying to fight? And I just think when you get to the place in which, like I said, from training a lot, from doing a lot of roles, you're tired, you're training, you have people that may be bigger than you, more skilled than you, trying to fake kill you, trying to put you in a situation where they have your arm, they're trying to choke you, you're exhausted. Everything after that is just simple. That's it. It's like, all right, someone's breaching. All right, I mean, worst case scenario, obviously the company loses a lot of money or ransomware, your career could be compromised, but are you dead? Is your arm going to get broken? Is your ankle going to get popped out of place? Is someone going to compromise your knee? Are you like exhausted to the point where you feel like your chest beating out of you? No, you're not. Everything else can be solved. That's it.
So you kind of like your health, the way you've taken your health routine to the extreme, it allows you to stay calm in the most crisis situation for your clients.
Because guess what? If I have a 275-pound man trying to choke me out and put me under pressure, if I start freaking out, then guess what he's going to have? Matter of fact, this morning, one of my guys, pro fighter, cop now, he was like putting me in positions that he was trying to choke me out. But I was able to get out of it. If I freaked out, it would not have worked out for me. He just controlled that whole 6-8 minute match. He just had a real dominant positions, pause, and so he was doing stuff like that, but I was able to get out. But if I was freaking out, it would not have worked out.
So tell me what your message would be to some of the people, your fellow colleagues, or any technologists out there that might not prioritize health. What would you have a message for them, or anything that you want to share in terms of health and their work?
I would say long term, it may not work out in your favor, and you might risk getting burned out. And if you get burnt out in this field, and this is your main source of income, then how are you going to provide for your family or yourself? How are you going to sustain yourself? So I think if you start looking at longevity in this game, because I mean, think about it, right? Most of us sit down 12 hours a day. Like I sit in front of a computer. Like if I'm not training, I'm in front of a computer, and you sit down long periods of time. You're not focusing on your nutrition. You're not working out. You have a very sedentary lifestyle. It doesn't play well on and on and on. I mean, everybody talks about, okay, this person works 24/7. He doesn't, that's all he does. I mean, great, good for him. I mean, listen, if that's your path, that's your path. But, you know, you also look at that person and they don't look like the healthiest people. They may have initial career success, but, you know, longevity wise, you know, I don't, good luck.
Thank you. Now we're about to, because I know there's a premiere you want to think on. Is there any like lasting message? I know we've covered your origin story. We talked a little bit about TBF, strategic generation, and your foundation of health. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience that's important for them to know about you and this work that you do through TBF and your company?
I think you covered it all. You know, it's interesting being in this spot. I think one of the good reasons we're doing this and this show is because part of the fintech ecosystem or the fintech universe, we're still going to do our live shows on Friday, and we're also going to start a series where we do intimate interviews with fintech CEOs and so forth. So this is the jump off to that, where it's really about, you know, usually we bring them on a particular topic, but we're going to start a series in which we want to talk about them. We're going to talk about their origin story. We're going to talk about, like, because some people think, oh my God, this guy's like magic. He has this firm, he started, and just want to break that barrier. There are people at the end of the day that did something remarkable. No one's taking that away. And then some of the stories are inspiring. I remember this year I was at Money 2020. I met this one CEO from Nigeria. Her story was so remarkable and inspired me. I mean, it was just totally inspiring. And we just talked. We weren't even, it wasn't a real interview. We wish we would have recorded it, but it was over lunch. And, you know, I'm naturally like a host in the terms of asking questions and getting into people, and just so inspiring. So the goal is to start bringing more of that out in one of the new series we're going to have in the Tech Behind FinTech universe.
Right. And I think that speaks to your value of understanding the people. I think in this business, you know, you can be offering the same services, but it's, do we know who we're working with? Do we trust who we're working with? And I think that's so important. I'm just going to put a shameless plug real quick. One of the podcasts that I'll be launching next year is called Trust Matters Now, and you're one of the people that are going to be on the guest. And it's all about trust, talking about trust, understanding how trust impacts the way we work. I mean, when you think about all the things that you do, you know, from health and your passion, even in sharing this TBF, what would you say is important for you to convey to another person as it pertains to trust and building that trust in the relationship?
Said earlier, right? You know, are we in the security business or are we in the trust business? And I think we're in the trust business. You want to basically put things in place that the people that you work with trust you, right? The businesses that you have to deal with, they have trust. How do they have trust? Because you're, from a cybersecurity perspective, I can speak from, right? You're transparent and you're organized. You're digital. It's not manual stuff you got to think about. No, these things are all taken care of, and they can see that. You have someone who can talk to that, and you're diligent in it. That invokes trust. Now they're like, you know what? You know, the question is, I never forget, it was a call I was on, and before the CISO on their end could even ask me, no, it was like boom, 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 asking questions. So how do you do this? Oh, we talked about depth. Just having a great technology conversation. And afterwards, she was like, you know what, we're good. Because in that conversation, I built trust.
Right.
And once again, are we in the security business or are we in the trust management business?
Good point. Good point. I know you have to do the commercial for the sponsor, but I know you also want to do the premiere for the recap for this year. So I'm going to give it over to you to do that.
All right, we're going to do a recap, and we're going to post a recap on social media afterwards. But here's the recap for 2023.
My name is Nnamdi Osuagwu from Tech Behind FinTech.
Nice recap. We didn't even get to this hour went well. We didn't really get to even talk about the Money 2020 experience and how TBF.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Media. We got a few minutes. What was that like to go to Money 2020 as a media of TBF?
So understand, right? Like Tech Behind FinTech was started 3 years ago in a room in my house, right? And to get to the point where we're going to a conference like Money 2020 is the Super Bowl of FinTech conferences, right? And to get to the point where we could apply as media and get accepted because of the work that we did and the shows that we did for the industry and the FinTech community, truly monumental. I'm going to be a staple there every year now. It's in Vegas, pretty awesome. That's some really inspiring FinTech CEOs. I think next year when I go, I want to bring a team member, number one, and two, I want to do interviews on the spot there. I didn't get an opportunity to do that this year. Great experience, really happy.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, I'm just so excited that you actually asked me to do this. Hopefully I did justice to bring out your origin story, to give you
phenomenal job
platform. And that this is something that I'm getting excited to hear more from other CEOs of emerging fintechs and how the TBF family is growing to have this new segment. And I think it's going to be nice because I think it's important, as a person, an advocate of trust, I think it's important to know the people you work with. And so that is why you're doing this thing, and to also give them the highlight so people know who's behind the app and not just the FinTech app. So again, thank you for allowing me to sit in your seat, if only for an hour, to do this. And that's it for me. Any last words for you?
So we're gonna take a second. We have a message from our sponsor, and then we're gonna circle right back to close the show out.
Are you an emerging fintech with a limited budget seeking more sales and partners? Introducing Strategic Generation, your partner in leveraging cybersecurity for sales and partner enablement. Fintechs often lose opportunities due to unsophisticated cybersecurity programs. That's where we come in. Strategic Generation assists with due diligence, security posture visibility, penetration testing, and on-demand virtual CISO services. We connect your systems to our partnered platform, and voila! Instant access to real-time diagnostics and compliance frameworks such as SOC 2 and PCI DSS. Gain the confidence of prospects and partners. Strengthen your cybersecurity program and drive success. Stop losing deals due to cybersecurity. Visit strategicgeneration.com and click on On-Demand CISO to connect with an expert.
Just like that, we are back. Amazing show today. Thank you very much. It was interesting being in this side. And a funny part, I just want to share it. So pre-show, Chum was like, don't worry, I'm going to ask questions. It's going to be real conversation. It's going to be like a conversation. It's not going to be a Q&A situation. I want to make it like I was laughing hysterically because this is exactly the speech I have to a lot of guests come on, like, what are be the questions? What's going to be this? What's going to go on? And I've never, until today, I actually felt that nervousness. I was like asking her, what's going to be this? She's like, don't worry about it. We're just going to have a good conversation. I don't want to make it real conversational. And I was like, okay, no problem. And you did an amazing job. But I found it funny because I've never been on this side of the show before. So it's always everyone they did exactly. So it's good to kind of be on this side so I can understand what they're going through. But no, it was totally amazing, and I really appreciate you coming on as a guest host. One of the future goals for TBF that I actually see is us having different shows with actual hosts and different ideas around that. And that's part of the whole Tech Behind FinTech universe.
Wow. You are really creating a TBF universe. I look forward to it, to be on the sidelines and also to activate or be active in any way I can. And I look forward to having you on my podcast next year. So thank you again for allowing me to sit in your seat. And this is the last show. So is there anything you want to say to them? The next show will be for January.
Yeah, so this is the last show of 2023. We're coming back January 5th with a Trends in FinTech show. So we have off next week. But listen, guys, everyone here watching, the guests, absolutely amazing. And I thank you for an awesome year. We did 49 episodes this year. Understand, it's only 52 weeks in a year, and we did 49 episodes this year. That's crazy. But yeah, man, it was real good year. 29 guest shows or so. About 21. I have the stats, like 21 unique guests. We had some repeat guests, but we were just on a lot. So I thank you guys for watching it. I thank the guests who came on. I'm going to do a special LinkedIn post to everyone who definitely supported and came on the show and our viewers. But very interesting 2023 in terms of the amount of shows that we had. So, next year, looking for, like I said, probably another series as part of the FinTech, Tech Behind FinTech universe. In addition to our live shows, we're probably going to have another series we're going to start with different seasons and so forth. So looking forward to all that. And we're still in the planning phases for all those things.
I hope people just heard that. It went from, should I do this? Should I get on this and talk about this in the 2020? And now we're talking about TBF universe. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again for saying yes. Thank you for bringing Tech Behind FinTech. Again, I'm not active in the technology world anymore, but I still learn things listening to the show. So I want to thank you for that.
Appreciate you. And to our guests watching, all my guys on Instagram who watched, I said, shout out to everybody out. Thank you very much, Chinwe. And then everyone have a happy holiday.
Happy holidays. Thank you for listening.
Happy Christmas and a happy New Year. We'll be back in 2024. Cheers.
Happy New Year. Take care.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.